Welcome to That's Entertainment with No Not Them. I'm Chris Brown. He's Mike Nichols, and we are not the two people that you're thinking about talking about the entertainment industry. Today, we have a jam-packed, very first episode of That's Entertainment, where we're going to be discussing the top 8 awards at this year's Academy Awards that is scheduled for March 2nd. Over the next hour, we're going to be discussing the Best Picture, Best Director, the Best Acting categories, and the Screenplay categories. Mike, are you excited to dive into the Academy Awards this episode?
Well, as you know, this is the Super Bowl for me. It is very important. It is a religious experience for myself. So I am ready and I am panicked because this year I do not know what I want for everything. So we might be seeing in the moment decision making happening with my predictions.
That is always the best part about this show is the undecisiveness, the decisions that we have to make. So we're going to head into our very first category, and that is Best Adapted Screenplay. And the nominees for Best Adapted Screenplay are A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, Sing Sing. Now, Michael, I had not a hard time picking this category because I watched all of the films that were nominated, and one truly stood out for me, and that was Conclave. I don't know why it spoke to me, but I am locking in that I think Conclave should be the award, the movie that this year's adapted screenplay goes to. What did you think about these 5 movies, and where did you ultimately land on?
So I think I liked every single one of these. Other than Amelia Perez, I wished was not a musical, which is shocking to hear out of my mouth, but I felt like it took away from the actual story and turned it into something that was more a mess. I know it's the most nominated film this year, and there's been a lot of controversy surrounding it, but I really liked a lot of these. This is actually one of the categories I'm struggling with picking. Because I could go with what my heart is saying, which is Sing Sing had the best adapted screenplay, I think, out of every single one of these nominees. The way it navigated the material and the story and really allowed for the folks that it was about to play themselves in this film was absolutely brilliant. But Nickel Boys won the Writers Guild Award, and that's a huge factor. And while I did not necessarily love every aspect of Nickel Boys, I think that the script is incredibly strong. And if you're looking to give as many awards to the best pictures and to sprinkle them throughout the night to celebrate everyone, this is really the only opportunity you can give Nickel Boys that sort of award. So I'm gonna lock in Nickel Boys for this one.
So I did some deep diving into these writers of who adapted these screenplays for feature film. So A Complete Unknown had the writer had been nominated beforehand. Conclave had been nominated for an award beforehand. Amelia Perez had not been, but he is nominated. The writer of Amelia Perez is nominated as Best Director, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Nickel Boys, the writer, she was nominated twice for 2 different categories for documentary and best documentary feature film and best short documentary. And the only one who hasn't been nominated was Sing Sing. So I think this year you're going to see a big theme, in my humble opinion, of the Academy Awards giving out awards to those who had been nominated before or should be getting recognized this year. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like that's always a really strong possibility. We saw it with Jamie Lee Curtis when she won for Everything Everywhere All at Once, when she wasn't even the best person for supporting actress nominated in the category from her own movie. Um, and I think that that's going to be a common thread with some of my picks. I think what knocks, unfortunately, Sing Sing really out of the running is the film has 2023 as a official release date for it. And a lot of times folks go, okay, we'll recognize your movie, even though it came out too late to qualify or it was. specifically at only film festivals towards the end of the year, and that's why it has this early release. But I just I don't know. I'm curious to see what the direction it goes in because it is always a hit or miss. And they could do a year where it's all folks like Jamie Lee Curtis winning, or they could do years where it's a bunch of first timers. And that's what's exciting about the Oscars is we don't know. And it stresses me out.
Was there a movie or a film that was, or a movie and film are two of the same things, Chris? So let's continue on with my statement while I was thinking about that. Was there a film that should have been nominated in this category? Because I have one that I just recently rewatched actually a few weeks ago, and I think there could have been a place, and you and I could probably disagree with this if you have seen it, but I think Saturday Night should have been nominated in a Best Adapted Screenplay category for this. I truthfully, and this is just me, myself being me right now, I think you could have taken out a complete unknown and put in Saturday Night. Jason Reitman wrote that, and I think he did a fantastic job. Was there a film or for those who might be listening to this who are not watching this, Michael's giving the look of, oh no, you just said that. So what's your thoughts on what I just said? And was there a film that you thought that should have been nominated?
No, I haven't seen Saturday Night, and I've seen a lot of buzz about that. Would if that was going to get a nomination, that was the snub, and it didn't get it for adapted. No, this is where you're going to look at me like I'm crazy. I'm actually really kind of shocked Wicked is not there for adapted screenplay. I think the way that they took the source material and adapted it for the state or for the screen from the stage was absolutely incredible, especially utilizing the book as a resource. And I would have seen Amelia Perez actually gone. The script was fine. It was fine script. It just, I think Wicked was just stronger in terms of the material working with and the adapt. Like they stayed faithful to it versus just kind of going forward and kind of create because I don't know the Amelia Perez source material. I don't know what it's based on. And that's my own fault, I think, for not doing the research, but it just God, it was not it was a miss for me, and the fact that it has 13 nominations is wild.
So to lock in our predictions for Best Adapted Screenplay at the 2025 Academy Awards, Chris Brown is going with Conclave.
Mike Nichols is going with Nickel Boys.
And now we're going to move to Best Original Screenplay nominees, and they are Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5th, The Substance. Now, Michael, I will be the first to admit, over the next few, probably a half hour, 40 minutes, I'm going to be breaking down my lock-in prediction into three different categories. This category I had a true hard time on because I think there's a movie that should win. I think there's a movie that probably will win, and there's the hard time of me splitting between two movies who I think should probably win this. And this is one of the categories that I had a hard time deciding between the two contenders who I think will win. And those two films are The Brutalist and September 5th. Now,
Okay.
I was stuck between these two, and for the love of me, I had to rack my head. I had to go back and rewatch one of them, and I'm going with the final prediction of for best original screenplay. I'm predicting that The Brutalist will win original screenplay. I this is a true toss of the coin for me because I think September 5th had a good story. I think it did a great job in telling that story, but I think The Brutalist still was able to pull it out for me. What was your thoughts, and did you have a hard time on this one, like the last category we talked about, the adapted screenplay?
This is actually the one of these eight that I'm having the most panic over. Because it's just a complete unknown. um, I think September 5th has the best screenplay in this category. Like hands down, it is the absolute best one. I also think it has the least likely shot at winning. It is only nominated in this category. It is only nominated for like it's nothing else, which is I think unfortunate, but it's an ensemble cast, and we can get into the politics of adding ensemble cast as a category, and this is a good film to show why you need that category. But it is the best film. It is the best script out of all of these, and it's not going to win, unfortunately. For me, it came down to of the other four, which is actually going to win because all four of them have a pathway to victory. And they've all won screenplay awards across the various award shows that have been going on. Anora most recently just won the Writers Guild Award, which is usually a huge indicator. But something in my gut is telling me that it maybe isn't as locked in. I'm actually closer aligned with what Variety has predicted. And this is gonna be shocking. I think The Substance has a really, yeah, I know, shocking. I think The Substance has a really clean, clear pathway because I think what's going to happen is a lot of folks are going to get bogged down by Anora, Brutalist, and Real Pain, and they're going to be like, which of these three? And I think with The Substance, it's a movie about Hollywood. Everyone's loving the Demi Moore, like story of I never won anything. No one ever wants to think of me. It was very much the same vein of Jamie Lee Curtis when she won. Her movie was just being more visually and critically well received. But The Substance, it's horror never gets recognized, and when it does, it usually gets recognized in all capitals. Like I like part of me is like, do I go with Honora or The Substance? But I think I have to go with The Substance. I think this is going to be one of those categories people don't realize, and one of those categories that folks aren't going to think too much about because they're going to go immediately Brutalist or Honora, and that one's going to sneak in. So I'm going to lock in The Substance.
So, as we did with adapted screenplay, I correct me if I'm wrong here because you know the entertainment industry a little bit better than I do. Is there ever a time when uh animated feature film is nominated for these categories, or are they often left out of the loop? Because when it comes to original screenplay, and this is going to be where we're going to talk about in our only YouTube exclusive segment, where we talk about the remaining categories that we weren't able to fill in this episode. But I think The Wild Robot should have been put into the original screenplay.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not the only
Um,
one here.
no. The issue is animated a lot of times gets put on the back burner for films because sometimes the animated film is the best film of the year. Snow White won it, but there's been a big push once they added the animated film category. That was around, which was around when Shrek came out, I want to say, because everyone was like, Shrek's going to win Best Picture. Then suddenly Best Animated Feature popped up, and Shrek didn't even get a lot of the nominations it should. Because there's been voice acting performances that have come from animated films that don't get nominated, like Robert Pattinson in The Boy and the Heron. I think that's what that one was called
Yep.
from last year's win, The Boy and the Heron. He should have won, like point blank, period, and he didn't even get nominated. So I think like with Wild Robot, which we're seeing it in other categories, which is really cool, so not the norm. Like very much so not the norm. Because I do think I agree. The Wild Robot should probably be there, and the Wild Robot probably should be over Anora, which has been winning. If we're going to be 100% honest.
I think you and I are in the same mind here. So, to recap and officially lock in the original screenplay nominees that we predict are going to win, Chris Brown is going with The Brutalist.
And Mike Nichols is going with The Substance. And now the nominees for Best Actress in a Supporting Role are Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini, Conclave, and Zoe Saldana, Amelia Perez. Okay, so this is the one category that I had zero issue with. I have been saying from the beginning, shouting it from the rooftops, that it's going to be this particular actress, much to Chris's chagrin, as he kept saying, "You're wrong. There's no way. You're wrong." I firmly and emphatically feel that Ariana Grande for Wicked has this locked in. I think that, there's some Zoe Saldana stuff going on. I think Monica Barbaro was fantastic and probably should be the winner, but I don't know. I've been saying it from the beginning. I really, really, really think that we're going to be looking at Ariana Grande winning an Oscar in front of everybody, much to my delight and my husband's disdelight. I don't think, or what's the opposite of delight? Sadness? Sadness.
Disdain.
Disdain. How about you, Chris? What do you think? Who do you think?
Okay, so this is where we're going to start getting into Chris's very conflicted multiple personalities have to come out of the woodworks. So I had a hard time between three different people on this category. And yes, Ariana Grande was one of them. I have it down to Ariana Grande, Isabella Rossellini, and Zoe Saldana. Now, I think and I truly believe that Isabella Rossellini gave probably one of the best performances of her life and probably of this year of 2024 in Conclave as the sister. She was probably the powerhouse in that movie that really brought the movie together and moved the storyline forward. Now, I know she has no chance in hell of winning of this film for this award for best supporting role for an actress. So it came down to two people. And yes, it was Ariana Grande in Wicked and Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. Now, this is where it really got hard for me, and I flipped a coin. I literally flipped a coin because I was about five
Damn.
minutes away from going with Ariana Grande. If you would have asked me on Friday, I would have said it was going to be Ariana Grande. But I think Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez is going to win this by a very thin margin. She is not going to run away with it. I think she's going to win it. She has been picking up a lot of the awards for this. I think, which we're going to be talking about in the Best Picture category, with the Amelia Perez controversies that surround it right now. There is some very big push to give it to Ariana Grande to sort of block Amelia Perez from winning anything. But I think Netflix has thrown their money solely behind Zoe Saldana to win Best Supporting Actress. And I think she actually, yeah, and this is going to be the controversial statement, and I might get in the good books with your husband finally. I think she has a better singing voice than Ariana Grande.
Listen, Jonathan does not like Ariana, but Jonathan fully is like, she's got a great voice. She's got a brilliant voice. I that's shocking. That's the most shocking thing about this whole category. Um, I if I would probably agree more strongly with you if the controversy hadn't come out quite literally right before voting started for these. And so I think that's where folks went in going, Amelia Perez, it's not universally liked. A lot of the other awards that it's been picking up had nominations and selections and voting happened before the Golden Globes when it started to pick up steam because folks didn't know this film, started watching it after the Golden Globes and went, oh, this movie's not that great. I think if we're going to be very honest, though, Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown gave the best performance. And it's unfortunate she has no real shot at winning here, but she gave quite literally the best one. Um,
But at the
but
same
in terms
time,
of like,
I'm going to interject here for a second. While she has an outside chance of winning, Felicity Jones is not even someone we're talking about at this moment. So literally, she has a worse chance than
yeah.
Monica to win. So
Well, I think she has a better chance than Isabella Rossellini. I'm gonna be very transparent. Isabella Rossellini was in the movie for like 16 minutes, and it was not even the most memorable amount of time.
um,
Um, she was brilliant, but like in terms of remembering that movie, and maybe it's because it's one of the first ones I watched, I think that she has the least likely shot. I think if you see a kind of a split vote between Ariana and Zoe, you'll see Monica take it up.
I would agree with that. I they're looking at this category. Usually there's one category every Oscars that there's like that consensus around who's going to win. And usually, and I hate to say it this way, it's usually the best supporting actress with last year it was oh, correct me, you know her name right off the top of your lung. She won for The Holdovers. Best supporting actress last year is
Oh, Davina Joy Randolph.
there you go. There was a very big consensus around that she was going to win because she gave the best performance. I think this year is actually the first year where a lot of people are going, it could go any way, and there's going to be some big shocks, and this might be the one shock that it does actually throw this whole thing into question about who's going to win our bet.
Yeah. I think that in terms of like snubs, because we've been talking about that, I think Margaret Qualley for The Substance is a big snub here as well. And it is a shame she is not there. Um, do you have any snubs that you want to jump on right now, or?
I don't think so. I think this category is relatively well versed. Like there's always the ones that I'm like, oh, maybe you should have chosen this person or that person. But out of the all the movies that I saw this year, because I didn't see all of them, and let's be honest, I think these are the five that I'm okay with.
Cool. So to lock it in, Mike Nichols is picking Ariana Grande from Wicked.
And
And
Chris Brown is picking Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez.
and the nominees for Best Actor in a Supporting Role are Yura Borisov, Anora, Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice. So, with this category of actors in a supporting role, this is one of those. This is the Ke Huy Quan. This is the Davina Joy Randolph. This is the category that the actor has been winning everything, and it's very much not a shock. And a lot of these, I would be shocked if many of these folks actually prepared a speech, because Kieran Culkin is kind of universally being recognized. He's having a really good year with Succession. He won the Emmy. He's been winning all these awards for this, and it's still shocking to me that Kieran Culkin, out of the Culkin brothers, is kind of becoming this powerhouse because I would have said Macaulay had it been, 15, 20 years ago. But Kieran kind of came out of nowhere and is become this like award show darling that he gets nominated and he wins. What are your thoughts?
So I would agree. I would agree. This is like Kiwon Q and Robert Downey Jr. This is the category that has been universally basically predicted by the time the nominations come out that this is who's going to win. Now, I will say though, I think even though I did like Kieran Culkin's portrayal in A Real Pain, I think there was a better actor who gave a better performance in this category, who's been nominated. And I'm going to say something very controversial right now. I think Jeremy Strong should have won this category for The Apprentice.
Wait, agree.
Now, this is not going to happen with everything that's going on in the States right now with Donald Trump being the president of the United States. But I truly think, and Michael and I, prior to recording this, I said that I thought Edward Norton gave a great performance. But I went back and prior to recording our thoughts, I went, no, you know who actually did truly stand out for me? It was Jeremy Strong. Jeremy Strong carried that movie. While Sebastian Stan was good, Jeremy Strong literally carried that movie. But for my prediction, yes, it's going to be Kieran Culkin.
No, I 100% agree. And last night when you said Edward Norton, I was like, no, but like Jeremy Strong, like let's not count him out because that performance was incredible.
Yeah.
And it was one of those like he didn't care, like he was playing someone who was universally hated.
Yeah.
And he went in and he was not afraid to pull the punches you needed to pull for, embodying Roy Cohn. The performance was just so beyond incredible. And this is one of those categories that across the board, I don't know if you've noticed this, but nobody can seem to agree for the award shows on who should go here and who should be in this category. It seems the only ones folks could fully agree on were Kieran and Jeremy. Everyone else has been replaced. Sebastian Stan also replaced a couple of folks here with when he was in A Better Man
Yeah.
or A Different Man, or there's
A
like three
different, a
movies this year
different,
with.
a different man, a perfect man,
Thank
a
you.
better man, a man.
Uh,
He was a man, and
a
he was in a
man.
movie.
There was a lot of movies with man in them, and Sebastian Stan was one of them, and just gave the performance of his life from what I've heard, and it didn't even get nominated. Um, there's been a couple as well. A few of the folks from Sing Sing I felt could have been here. Just overall, it's an interesting category because it's so clearly Kieran, and he's so clearly not the best one in the category, and I don't know why. I will be very happy if we see a Jeremy Strong, Edward Norton win, but I'm really strongly predicting Kieran. How about you? Any snubs that you think we should be talking about?
The movie I'm Still Here, the Brazilian movie that is based on the life of a politician and a family that goes through a civil war down in Brazil. The father who plays the actress's I forget his name right now, and I apologize, but that movie should have gotten a few of these acting categories, should have been put into some of these acting categories, and the husband of the main actress's character should have been put into this category. And that's just my own personal opinion. I think it was a powerful movie. I think it does a lot to tell a part of time that most people don't really know about. So that's the only part that I would say was sort of a snub. But at the end of the day, like you said, there's a lot of these categories, like the award shows, that the supporting actor role is like, who can we fill this category with? Like, what movies were on this year? So let's just randomly toss in a few here. But I think you're right. I think Kieran Culkin is going to win. I will say this though, and this might be the part
Okay.
where we disagree on. Do you think he should have been nominated for Best Actor rather than Best Supporting?
No, I think that he
Really?
should absolutely, yeah, I think he should be supporting. Oh, yeah, with him and Jesse Eisenberg, since it's a two-hander, Jesse really was the focal point of the story. He was the one that we were focusing on. It was him and his inability to deal with his grief, whereas Kieran Culkin was dealing too much with it. And Jesse was kind of the main character, similar with Wicked. You could argue that both Ariana and Cynthia should be in the same category, but it's Cynthia's story, it is Elphaba's story. With this, it is Jesse Eisenberg's story. It's not Kieran's. He is the very strongly placed in supporting role, and he's got probably the length and the size of a lead actor role in it. But putting him in supporting, you have the potential to nominate both, and it fits. It's not like we're trying to sneak one in. It very much was a you are the supporting lead here.
It's going to be probably, and usually the best actor, best actress awards are one of the first four awards that get thrown out in the night, because those are I don't want to say throwaway because they're relatively good, but I think this is not going to be a shock where best supporting actress, as we just talked about, might be the bigger shock out of the two supporting acting categories. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think with the fact that the SAG Awards are happening and still have not announced yet, as of the time of filming, we are kind of holding with bated breath on if the SAG is going to showcase what's actually going to happen at the awards, or if it's going to be a situation we run into where, you don't have a matching set, and we find out Kieran Culkin doesn't have as clear a shot. But to recap, for Best Supporting Actor, Mike Nichols, am going with Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, and
Chris Brown, and this is the very first category on the recording that we've actually agreed upon, is also going with Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain.
the nominees for actor in a leading role are Adrian Brody, The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes, Conclave, and Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice. So this category was also fairly easy for me to pick who I wanted. There was a brief moment where I was entertaining Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. It's a strong category. I think every single one of these actors deserves to be here. And I, but I, something about Adrian Brody in The Brutalist really just spoke to me. He really only does like one movie every 4 years and usually wins for it because he's just such a brilliant actor and he really commits wholeheartedly when he finds a project he likes. And he won it for me in the first 15 minutes of the movie. He has this moment where it starts and you find out he thought his wife was dead. And it's not a spoiler because it is the first 10, 15 minutes. And the first minute of the film is his wife reading a letter. So you know she's not dead. And his friend tells him that his wife is not dead. And or no, his cousin. And he just has this visceral reaction for like a minute and a half of learning that his wife he thought died in the Holocaust is actually alive and has written him a letter and is trying to get in touch with him. And it was just this, I in the middle of the theater went, and he just won. Um, but are you same boat as me? What are your thoughts?
I'm in the same boat as you. I think your analogy is right. When Adrian Brody does a movie, he gets nominated. And when you were saying that, it reminds me of another actor who, uh, now that he's retired, doesn't do anything, but Daniel Day-Lewis. Adrian Brody is the Daniel
Mm,
Day-Lewis of today's times, right? Because when Daniel Day-Lewis, he wouldn't do a movie, he would only do a movie every like 3 or 4 years, or even every 5 years. And every time he was in one, he would get nominated. I talk about Gangs of New York, My Left Foot. He was that guy that when you put in a movie, you're guaranteed it to be quote unquote Oscar bait, right? And I'm not trying to say that
yep.
as a bad thing. It's just when you knew Adrian Brody was going to be in this with what he won for previously, you kind of went, okay, this is going to be a contender. And then nothing, and I know there was a lot of talk about Timothy Chalamet being the sort of the dark horse of this category, right? But I don't think he gave a strong enough performance. And they are throwing out his PR people are throwing everything that they have behind him in this campaign because I can't turn
A little
on
bit.
any social media without Timothy Chalamet being in my feed. But for me, I think you're right. The narrative that Adrian Brody is able to portray, that raw emotion, you don't get that in too many actors. So when I saw he's like the female version of Meryl Streep, the male version of Daniel Day-Lewis, he is going to, I think, walk away with this. Go
The
ahead.
male version of Daniel Day-Lewis.
I
So
don't.
the Daniel Day-Lewis.
The Daniel Day-Lewis of Daniel Day-Lewis's.
I think this is a really strong category. And I don't know what it is, but I loved Conclave. I just think it's one of those movies that if there's a movie that's going to be sort of forgotten about, it's going to be Conclave. It was great and it deserves to have all these nominations, but in terms of like the other folks nominated, it just doesn't stack up as well.
Can,
Um,
can
I
I say
think,
something controversial?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
always.
Um, Conclave was great, and the last 15 minutes felt like it was thrown together.
Yeah.
Like it felt like they needed a storyline to wrap it up. And don't get me wrong, I know I'm just looking at my list right now. I know I did say it was going to win for best adapted screenplay because I truly think it truly did stick to the source material. I read the book; it was a good book. I think th- Conclave as the whole was a good movie. It just felt rushed and it felt like they were like, how can we give that shock factor? And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. Go in with a very open mind for the people who are watching this because it may be a controversial film at the end of it because that last 15, 20 minutes is the moment when you go, whoa, where'd this come from? So it just felt like it was very rushed and there was a lot of build up to a big letdown, in my opinion.
Yeah, the last 30 minutes of it really needed, or the last 15 minutes needed to maybe be the last 30 to 45 minutes. And I think like when you have the Brutalist having 3.5 hours with a whole intermission in the middle of it to give you that time and give you that really flush out the source material, you could have seen more. but this is a strong category, and we can't really count Timothy out. And I think that I won't be shocked if Timothy wins. He is kind of owed, but that's where we're at with that. So to lock in for me, Mike Nichols, I am going to be picking Adrian Brody from The Brutalist for my best actor. And
Chris Brown is again 2 for 2 here. It looks like we're getting again the unison march here towards the final few categories. My locked in prediction is Adrian Brody for The Brutalist.
and the nominees for Best Actress in a Leading Role are Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon, Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison, Honora, Demi Moore, The Substance, and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. So, this category, I still don't know if I have picked the right person. And I still don't, I'm going to throw a lot of information about this category that I hate this. Okay. So one of the biggest things that kind of comes out usually with the acting, the best actor and best actress is whoever wins best makeup in a musical or not musical. Geez, Louise, I just had a moment. But
Showing your
whoever
hand
usually
there,
wins best,
Michael.
yep, whoever wins best makeup and hair for that category usually wins either actor or actress. It's a big tie-in. It doesn't always work out that way, but like 75% of the time, they're very much linked together. This year, we have the utter joy of three of these nominees being also nominated for Best Makeup and Hair, and that is Demi Moore in The Substance, Carla Sofia Gascon and Amelia Perez, and Cynthia Erivo in Wicked. I think with Carla Sofia Gascon, we can kind of count her and her entire movie out because of the controversial and borderline racist, not even borderline, just blatant racist commentary that she was making on the internet, specifically Twitter. It's called X now, I believe. Um, I'm not on it. Um, so it comes down to a two-legged race between Demi Moore and Cynthia Erivo. And I do not know which one. I don't know because then you look at the Makeup Artist Awards, the MUA Awards that happened, and both Wicked won for fantasy period makeup and hair, and The Substance won for contemporary makeup and hair. So it's literally trying to drive me nuts. But I firmly think
Okay, before you say
with
anything,
Demi Moore.
before you say anything, I'm gonna throw out my 2 cents here because I feel like you're gonna
Oh
have an
God,
aneurysm here if I don't break in and start talking about how I feel because it gives you a few minutes to calm down,
breathe.
relax, and then jump into this to officially lock in your nominees. So
Yeah.
this is the category that I had probably the hardest time picking. And I am going to be as probably out to left field than I have in every other category that I've picked. Now, I had my 3 picks that I was locked down to. Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Mickey Madsen for Honora. Now, these are my 3 picks that I was very controversially battling myself over. And who I think should win, and this goes into where we're probably going to talk a lot in the YouTube exclusive part of this show. I truly think Fernanda Torres should win for I'm Still Here. I think she probably gave one of the best performances. I think she is the entire time she's on the screen, she is just far and above the best actress I have seen in a very long time, and I think she should win. Now, I'm going to say who I think will win. And this is probably the moment when Mike is going to reach across the screen and slap me. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said Demi Moore was going to win this. I think there is such a split in this entire category that I think Mikey Madison for Nora is going to win Best Actress at the 2025 Oscars this year. And now I know this is probably one of the most controversial takes that I've ever given on this show, even compared to me comparing Ariana Grande and Zoe Saldana's singing voices together. But if as of recording this episode, I know I'm probably going to be hurting my chances of winning our personal bet, Mike, but I think Mikey Madison for Honora is going to win this category.
This is a big swing.
Yeah.
This is a really big swing because if you
Yeah.
get this, like, you might win the whole thing and overthrow me. And that's a wild pick. I'm gonna go with Demi Moore against my heart is telling me Cynthia, but my head is saying go with Demi Moore. She's got the whole nobody ever loved me, and I thought these weren't awards weren't for me thing going on, and it's working. And not it's not that she's doing it on purpose, but like
She's doing it on purpose.
she's doing it on purpose. Like, yes, girl, we get it. Like everybody loves Demi Moore. Let's give her her flowers. She's been in the industry for 800 years. Like, I think it's a Demi Moore year. I think it's also it's a deserved winner. I think she did a great job. I may not have necessarily loved the movie. It was a little unhinged for me, but I can recognize that just because it wasn't to my personal taste, I it's going to be a pretty big contender and winner. I think I'll be shocked if it wins nothing. But I think ooh, I no, Mike Nichols is going to lock in Demi Moore from The Substance. And
Hey, can I, before I lock in my prediction, I need to say this because I think this is the
okay.
part where I think this is going to be the vote split year for Best Actress. I think you're
Hmm.
right. I think Demi Moore and Cynthia Erivo probably are the two major front runners. But if you look at the odds, if you look at the where the people are looking, if you stack Demi Moore and Cynthia Erivo against each other, they're probably going to be close. I think that is going to give Mikey Madsen a way to move up the center and win this. And this is a true, honest. I think she gave a good performance. I don't think it was the standout, but I think she probably deserves this because this is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of her first roles or first few roles. Um, I'm saying a lot of controversial things right now, but here's what we are. Here we are. Angela Bassett should have won for against Jamie Lee Curtis for Black Panther 2.
True.
I think you and I will both agree with that. But what did the Oscars do the year after? Here's your honorary Oscar, Angela Bassett. That's what they're going to do to Demi Moore if she doesn't win. Putting my prediction in the world right now that if Demi Moore doesn't win, which I don't think she will, I think she'll get a honorary Oscar in 2026. So to lock in my prediction, my very long-winded prediction there, I'm going with Mikey Madsen, Anora, for Best Actress in a Leading Role. And the nominees for Best Directing of a Feature Film are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Amelia Perez, The Substance. Now, again, we go back to the age-old question of let's flip a coin because Chris could not make up his mind in this category again. Shocking. I had this down to three different movies, and that was The Substance, The Brutalist, and Anora. These are the three that I was a little bit back and forth on. I didn't know where I should land. I think Substance was good, but it wasn't great. I think The Brutalist was good. I think the directing was great. I think Anora was good. I think the directing was great. So it came down to two, as the next category will as well. And I was back and forth. And I think this is the year that the Academy officially splits the Best Picture and Best Director categories. And for my prediction, because I think it was actually probably one of the better directed films, I'm going with The Brutalist.
Okay.
I think it was a masterpiece of cinematography, for production, for telling a great story. I think uh it was just an overall well-told story through the director's eyes. And that's what you look for when you're looking at these directors, right? Who gets the best performances, who can bring a story together as a whole. I think The Brutalist was a better story overall. What did you think?
I mean, I think that The Brutalist is a fantastic film. It was actually one of my favorites this year, despite being 3.5 hours long, and I usually rail against anything longer than 90 minutes because why? Um, but
And
I
usually
think
rail
that,
about black and white as well.
yeah, well, this wasn't black and white. This was in like sepia tones, but it was not black and white. Um, which shockingly enough, Nosferatu Black and White loved it. So apparently I hold no actual weight to my thoughts this year. Um, I really also thought that A Complete Unknown was incredibly well directed. For me, if you had asked me a week and a half ago, I would have said it's between those two. And then the Directors Guild Awards happened, and the Directors Guild Awards is again a very good indicator of who's going to win the Oscar. It's all of the directors, and all of them fall into the Academy as well. So usually, whoever the directing guild goes to, like with the other guild awards, is because they're going to vote the same way. Typically, you would think. This is a weird year with the Amelia Perez of it all, but Honora actually won the Directors Guild Award, which throws my whole brain into a loop. And something you said to me a while ago was folks are really liking and resonating with Honora because it isn't like a typical Oscar film. You watch it and it feels like just a regular movie like that you would go see, like Friday or um, It Ends With Us or something just like a regular, we're going to go to the box office and we're going to see a movie and it's not going to be feeling super artsy. It's just going to be a really fun time. And this one was that. And rarely do they get nominated, but when they do, they just pick up steam. The last time this happened was Shape of Water. Folks were not predicting it. They were all over the place. They were going, it's going to be three billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri, or it's going to be um, Timothy Chalamet's Call Me by Your Name, and then Shape of Water appeared. I think that every once in a while, the Academy really does like to say, "Surprise! We're so excited for you, and we think that this needs to be, recognized so that people don't think it's just artsy films." So I think I'm gonna go with Nora for directing.
Are you surprised that Jonathan Wu, wasn't nominated for Wicket?
John M. Chu.
John M. Chu, sorry, I apologize. John M. Chu was not nominated.
I am. I'm actually really kind of shocked that he wasn't nominated, especially since like Amelia Perez was, and I think that John M. Chu just did a better job directing a musical than that one did. I I'm not sure why Amelia Perez got the hype that it got. And normally when they get this nominated, I can see it because it's like, okay, this one wasn't kind of it. I really do feel like Wicked should have been in this category, and a lot of the other award shows do have him in that category as well. So it's a weird thing for me.
Well, it was the Directors Guild that had him in there as well, right?
Yep, the
Yeah, and
Directors Guild had him.
that's where I'm a little bit more cautious about the Directors Guild, because traditionally, and I could be wrong, and this is where you could look it up and probably tell me I'm wrong here, Michael, but traditionally the directing guild and the directors are literally like copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, right? There's not that big of a
Yeah,
swing. But with John M. Chu not in this category, I think there was a lot of votes that went to John M. Chu that could have gone to The Brutalist, or could have gone to A Complete Unknown, that went to him, that gave Honora that leg up. So that's why I'm a little bit more cautious to say I don't think the Directors Guild got it right this year. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, and I'll eat my crow if I have to on March 3rd when Mike and I sit down and do a follow up for this. But for me, I think The Brutalist was just a better film overall. Well, not a better film overall. I think it was a better looking visual film than compared to Anora, but that's just my personal opinion. So to lock in for my prediction for Best Director is The Brutalist for Chris Brown.
And for Mike Nichols, I'm going to lock in Anora for Best Directing.
And our final category for today's episode of That's Entertainment with No, Not Them is Best Picture. And the nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicket. Now, I have some thoughts, so please buckle in and let me talk about my TED Talk for about 5 minutes while I get this off the plate.
Sure.
Now, I have been saying for this entire episode that I think I'm Still Here was probably the best film ever. Probably one of the best films of 2024. I think it was great. I think it had a great story. I think it was beautifully directed, beautifully acted, and I think overall it was a masterpiece. And I do not say that about a lot of things. And for those who are not seeing Michael on the screen right now, or those who are listening to this, he is trying to hold in his laugh because he's about to tell me it has no chance in heck of winning this category at all. So that's why
Correct.
realistic Chris came in and decided that Chris, go sit down and go take your lollipop and go to the corner while Chris, the actual conversation has to take place. And I came down to, like I did with director, to two films. And that was Anora and The Brutalist. Now, probably back in, I would say, December or late November, early December, Mike and I were back and forth on Messenger, talking to each other, talking about who was potentially going to be nominated, who was going to who was going to win. Some award ceremonies started coming out, and I said, and I told him this, and I can go back, and if I can go back and I can find it, I will put it on the screen right now under me so that way people know that I was talking about this. I think Anora is the best picture of 2024. I think it was a great story. I think Mikey Madsen did an amazing job as actress. If I was being realistic, this is where it's going. If I was being an optimist, I would say I'm Still Here was probably the better story overall. I truly believe there's always that one year where the Oscars gives it to a film that is more of a outsider, like you said, The Shape of Water. We talk about Roma. We talk about these films that no one really saw, and then it just came out of nowhere, and then people went, "Whoa, this is a great story." So that's why for 2024, now 2025, but 24-24 Best Picture for the Academy Awards, I believe is Anora. Mike, what did you think?
Okay, so for to get to that point, I need to do my brain.
Yep.
So before you even look at things like the Producers Guild Award, which is always a strong indicator for where International Best Picture and documentary are going to go, I wanted to first eliminate things that I felt had no real clear shot. I think one of the biggest examples of this is Nickel Boys. It just got nominated for Adapted Screenplay. It really should have more nominations to be a strong contender. So I think that's a really good indicator to strike it. Usually international film, though it can be placed here and in the past few years has been placed here, it really tends to feel like more of a placeholder than an actual real contender. Because like Roma did not win. The Green Book won.
Oh, that's
But
right. Yeah.
yeah, Parasite won, but Parasite was considered one of the greatest films of all time. Um, I I I think that you can take I'm Still Here out and Amelia Perez out because they're both in international film. That's their category. And that's what you tend to see with a lot of voters because they don't want to watch all five international films. They want to watch the one that they need to and then call it a day. So I think those three films are out. I think Conclave, sort of the same thing with Nickel Boys. It just didn't get, it was there. It was fine. It was there. It was not the heavy hitter that everyone wanted it to be. And then to kind of round out of the five and take another one out, Dune Part 2 did not have the impact both culturally and in the film's creation that Return of the King had to make it a contender as a fantasy sci-fi, like high fantasy, high sci-fi film that sometimes finds itself into this category. Like Return of the King was beautifully created. This, while it had beautiful points, did not have the impact that you got with like Return of the King, which swept the awards the year that it was nominated. It's one of the I think it's the most awarded film of all time. Period. It won every single technical category and ended up winning Best Picture. The only things it wasn't nominated for were acting, and so therefore, well, it just didn't win for or international because it was not international or short. So out of those five now gone, that leaves The Substance, Wicked, A Complete Unknown, The Brutalist, and Anora. The Substance, I think it's gonna win for Demi. I think it's gonna win some screenplay. I think it's gonna win a good number. I don't think it's gonna win here. I think when you look at the movie as a whole, it's just horror is a hard sell. And with this specific horror, there's only so far it's gonna go. And I think it's gonna go farther than most tend to. But we're gonna hit a point where it just hits a wall. Um, a Complete Unknown, I think was a great film. I really enjoyed it. I think your final three are Wicked, The Brutalist, and Anora. I think Wicked not being nominated for director hurts it really strongly. I think that that's one of the biggest things. Usually, director and best picture go together. They're married typically, and without that, it's already an uphill climb for Wicked. I think Wicked was a great movie, but I also think people are going to say we'll just do it all for part two. Wicked, final questions or no more questions or whatever it's called.
Can I interject
So
there for a
that,
second? Can I
yeah,
interject
yeah,
there for a
yeah.
second? Because we said that exact same thing about Dune 2, Dune 1. When a few years ago when Dune came out, you and I both on this show, because I went back and I listened to all of our
Mhm.
past episodes because I wanted to get a feel of how bad I'm going to do this year. And when we were talking about Dune, we were like, "Oh, Dune 1 is great, but they're gonna pick up a lot of the bigger categories, the best director, best picture in the part two." And it fell completely off. Do you not feel
Yep.
that there could be a sweep? Because we don't know what's going to come out in December of this year. And while everyone is saying that if Wicked doesn't win this year, it's going to win next year, there could be a groundswell for another, like, whatever this year is going to be, because Dune 2 was predicted that the storytelling is so great, the visuals are so great, it's going to go bigger and better this year. It kind of fizzled out, and it's just there because it was the most watched film this year because people were so excited for part one. They're like, we need to see part two. And then part two was like, oh, okay, so that happened. And it's just there because it was uh a viewers, like, people watched it. Like most of the other ones, like you and I probably are the only ones who had probably seen all 10 of these films or close to all 10 of these films. They did it so that way people can say, "Oh, I saw Dune 2. Maybe that should win."
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense being here. And I think you make a good point. Wicked, everyone's going to go in saying we can give it the second movie, but then what happens if the second movie flops? I think the big difference between Wicked and Dune Part 2 is Wicked's already filmed. The whole thing was filmed at one point, so they can't really go back and fix things. With Dune Part 2, they went, oh, people really want more Zendaya. Let's give more Zendaya. Oh, people really want more of it. And so they move away from the storytelling aspect to then focus on, well, what do the fans want that's going to get
Yeah.
them excited? So you get some of that with Wicked. It's already done. It's just being edited at this point. It could probably come out tomorrow and be fully fine, but they're going to wait till closer to the awards. But but that's always a possibility. You run into, do you get a Return of the King, or do you get, unfortunately, a Dune Part 2 where it might win a couple of awards here, but it's not the big hitter that the first one was, and it kind of falls flat. Um, but I think I'm going to go with, were you saying something?
No, I was gonna say, but going back to our original conversation about the actual awards, who do you like? It seems like you're down to three: Wicked, Anora, and The Brutalist. Do you have like a
Yep.
final prediction?
I do. I think that I'm gonna have to go with the Producers Guild on this, and I think I'm gonna have to lock in Anora. I think that it's a Shape of Water year. If anything, Wicked and The Brutalist are splitting the vote, and that's why Anora keeps picking up. And I mean, it's a great film because it's not an artsy film. It's accessible. Anyone can watch this that doesn't necessarily want to sit through 3.5 hours or a musical and enjoy a film about a girl trying to make it out on the world with her new boyfriend turned husband, with the
And
family hating her.
that. And the Oscars are getting into more of the independent production companies, not the
Yeah.
big names anymore. Like look at last year with no, not was it Oppenheimer last year? Oppenheimer was last
Yes.
year, right? Okay, so that was a little bit bigger, but the year before that, Everything Everywhere All at Once was the A24, The Whale, A24. So there's usually that flip year. So every other year, so this year is going to be the independents that are going to win, and maybe next year you're going to see the big box office budget of Wicket Part Two, or sorry, Wicket for Good, because we got to make sure we label that one correctly, because God, that makes so much more sense than Wicket Part Two. But anyway, I'm here nor there. So with that, was there any snubs for you this year in the Best Picture category, or was there anyone that you said this should not have been here?
I actually am really kind of shocked that Nickel Boys is there. And I'm a little shocked Conclave is there. I liked it, but I feel like you could have probably hottest of hot takes. I think Wild Robot should be in this category. Um, and I think that Sing Sing really had a clear shot here. Also, hot take. I'm a little shocked there's no Nosferatu. I would have even put that in over some of these other ones. It's Best Picture. It's there's 10 movies and everyone wants to put 20 in. And so it turns into that situation where it's like, well, what do you put in then of these to pick 10 when you have 20 or 30 that can fit here? Um, so I,
So
I like that we're moving international too with it, but it's also like that leaves then out a bunch of American film. And so it's just a weird realm with this. And I'm glad they expanded it. I don't want to see them expand it again, but I feel like there's a case to do that.
we will be watching. So to lock in the final predictions of the 2024 top eight categories for the nominees for the Oscars for Best Picture, Chris Brown is going with Anora. And
Mike Nichols is going with Honora.
so before we let everyone go, we want to introduce our very first segment on That's Entertainment with No, Not Them of We Listen and We Don't Judge. Now, Michael and I have been known to get into some controversy of our own of talking about the entertainment industry in only ways that two people who aren't the people you're thinking of only can. And on time and time again, we will say things that we will get viewer mail from. But in this a segment of We Listen and We Don't Judge, we are going to expel our beautiful opinions onto you, and we don't judge them. We just take them for what they are. So for my We Listen and We Don't Judge opinion today is Wicked should not have been nominated for any category this year because it was a horrible, horrible movie. It should not have been nominated. I think the acting was horrible. I think Jeff Goldblum probably gave the best performance. Bach was horrible. I think Jonathan Bailey was a bad singer. I think Ariana Grande probably could have done a better job in Amelia Perez. But in my opinion, Wicked was a throwaway of a movie this year. We listen and we don't judge, Michael. What's your controversial opinion on We Listen and We Don't Judge?
Uh, I, okay. And I
We
can't comment on
listen,
any.
we
Yeah.
listen, and we don't judge.
Sebastian Stan's performance as Donald Trump in The Apprentice is probably the best acting performance of the entire year, and it's not going to be recognized as such because he's portraying Donald Trump, and America is in the throes of Trump mania, and he gave the best performance of the year, period.
We listen and we don't judge. Michael, I could see you bursting at the seams. I want to thank you so much for joining and sitting down today and talking about these eight great categories and our controversial opinions that I feel like I'm going to be hearing for the probably the next about 8 hours while you yell at me and scream at me, even though we listen and we don't judge. For the remaining categories, Mike and I will be sitting down and recording the other categories that have been nominated, including best feature film, best foreign film, best production, best cinematography. That will be online on our YouTube channel. So head over to www.youtube.com/cross-border interviews with Chris Brown and look for the part two YouTube exclusive part of this Oscar show. Mike, it's always a pleasure to talk about the entertainment industry as two people who aren't the people we're thinking of only can. So thank you so much.
Glad to be here until about 5 minutes ago.